Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Matt McGuire. I am with the Ohio LTAP Center here at ODOT, and I'll be your host for this webinar. Today's webinar will be looking at updates to GoFormz for local public agencies, and we're excited to have Jason Sneed and Stacy Newman as our presenters today. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items to ensure a smooth webinar experience for everyone. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the questions panel on your screen. You can type your questions there and we will address them during the dedicated Q&A session at the end. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties or have any other issues, feel free to use the chat panel to communicate with our team and we will do our best to assist you. Please note this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made available to all registered attendees after the session, along with a PDF of the presentation from today's webinar. All right, with that out of the way, let's get started. It's my pleasure to hand it over to Jason and Stacy. Jason and Stacy, the virtual floor is yours.
All right, thanks Matt for that introduction. Hello everybody, my name is Stacy Newman. I am employed at ODOT Central Office and the Office of Construction Administration. I cover the LPA construction monitors throughout the state.
And my name is Jason Sneed. I'm out of the Office of Contractors Compliance. I cover goal attainment for all of the local projects throughout the state of Ohio.
So this webinar today is just going to be an update of some of the changes that we've made to the GoFormz that are used on the LPA side. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about the interim rule that is really affecting most of these changes, going from our DBE program to now our SBE program. And then a majority of the presentation will be a live demonstration of those changes to the C92, CUF, and prompt payment forms. So just a little bit about the interim rule. The feds passed down this rule that was effective on October 3rd in 2025. And this rule said that our DBE program, as well as other states' DBE programs, were unconstitutional. So in response, our SBE program that was already in the works was fully implemented. During this time, after the rule was passed down, we had about 2 months where we had projects being sold that did not have any DBE or SBE goals. This rule also stated that projects that did have DBE goals cannot just end the contracts between the primes and subs that were DBE, but that there was no more reporting required for any of those DBE goals. So those DBE affirmations at the end of the projects, we no longer have to do those. We no longer have to monitor how much money is being spent through companies that were certified DBEs. So if anybody has any questions about that, this is not the first time we've talked about this, but I just wanted to reiterate that information. That's really why these changes have come about. Go ahead and ask any questions, and we will be able to answer those hopefully at the end of the session. Now we are going to go ahead and jump right into the live demonstration. So this demonstration will be in GoFormz online. This is how most people, I believe, are accessing GoFormz. So I'm just going to give a run through of each of these forms that we've changed to reflect this interim rule. So if you're not as familiar with GoFormz, this is what the interface looks like and the way that you're going to go in here to create a new form is you're going to go over here and press Create New and click on LPA Production. From there, you will want to click on whatever form that you are looking to fill out. So we're going to start with the C92. So here's just an overview of what our C92 looks like. I'll go through a little bit about how to fill out this title sequence. You should start by putting in the PID for the project. I'm just going to randomly select one here. And then with that, you can select the district. We're going to say District 2. One of the changes that has been made to some of our GoForms is that we've been able to pull our data from AWP, and that data really only encompasses who the LPA is, who the prime contractor is in relation to a certain PID. So because I put this specific PID in this box, there will only be one LPA that is available to be selected. And that should be the correct LPA. And then after that, we will be able to select a prime contractor. And this is the contractor that is in the system. So that is the one that is showing there. From there, you will have access to select any subcontractor that is available in our system. We have a very large amount of subcontractors that are listed in the AWP system. So all of those are listed here. This box works similarly to a search box. So if you start typing, it will narrow down those contractors. But if you have a subcontractor for an LPA job that is not in the system, like Stacy's company, you are still able to type in that name and press the done button, and the form will take that. From there, you'll put in the subcontractor address, and then if this subcontractor is an SBE or a DBE, you'll be able to select that. So let's say in this case, the subcontractor is an SBE, so we will say yes. And then we will also go over here and check the SBE box so that we are able to know if the subcontractor is a DBE or SBE. At this time, there is a chance that we will have projects where there are no SBE or DBE subcontractors. But for most projects, especially this calendar year, all of our subcontractors will be SBEs, not DBEs. The reason we've left the DBE lettering on these pages is because in the future, we believe that we will be going back to the DBE program sometime hopefully in 2027. But there will never be a time where a project is sold with both a DBE and SBE goal. So you'll only be able to select one of those here, and that will be your notification for what type of subcontractor this is. So that's really the overview of the changes to the C92 form. So we're going to go back. We're not going to save any of our changes. And we are going to quickly go over the CUF form. We will go to the same spot, the Create Now button, and then to LPA Production. And then we will click on the appropriate CUF form. You will notice here that we have a variety of different forms when it comes to CUF. We have a DBE, SBE, and then we have trucking forms for both DBE and SBE. The DBE and SBE CUF forms have recently changed, mostly to just make them simpler and easier to complete. The only real difference between the DBE and SBE forms at this time are the titles, that this one says SBE and the other one says DBE, and the proposal notes that they are referencing. Those are really the only updated current changes to these CUF forms, but this is just an overview of what this newer form looks like. All right. So we will go ahead and move on to our final form, the prompt payment form. I do apologize in advance that this form text looks a little off. Right now we have submitted a ticket to GoFormz to try and get this corrected. We are not quite sure why it's happening, but when you do export all of this information to a PDF, it does seem to resolve itself. So if you are having a little bit of trouble seeing the text on this form, try exporting it and you'll be able to see where all the lines are, what all the text says very, very clearly. So we're just going to go through this form and talk about some of the changes that were made to it and how you should be filling it out. So this form is used for prime contractors to report when they have been paid by the LPA and by ODOT, and for them also to report how much they have paid to each of their subcontractors. So we're going to start with this title block. We're going to select a PID. And very similarly to the other forms, that will only leave us with one option for the prime contractor value. So we will select that. You can put in whatever the original contract amount was. So in this case, we are just going to say that it was $500,000. We don't know at this point what the final contract amount is, but we are okay leaving that blank because it is in one of the light blue boxes, and only the boxes that are highlighted in red need to be filled out before the form is completed. So this is asking what the project goal type is. If you click on the box, it will give you some options. We're going to say that it's SBE in this case, and that we have a 5% goal. You may also notice over here that there is sort of a running total for how much of our SBE goal we have met to date. And that is calculated using the original contract amount that we've put in that title block. So we're just going to go ahead and put in some dates in this first box just to make sure that everything calculates correctly. we'll say the total for this first invoice was $75,000. Now, if this was the final invoice of the project, we would click this final invoice box right here and it would cross off for us to notify that it was a final invoice. So then we will continue to scroll down and we'll put in this box right here how much of that invoice went to the prime contractor. In this case, we're going to say that it was $50,000. Now we can move on and start to put in the amounts that were paid to each of our subcontractors. When you click on these boxes, it will also pop up that list of contractors available to enter. But in this case, our contractor is not listed. So we will just type out their name and that will show up in our box. For invoice 1, we'll say that subcontractor received $15,000. This total box over here will show how much we've paid to that subcontractor throughout the life of the project. So we will continue to work down this form. And in this box, we're going to report any payments from the prime to our DBE or SBE subcontractor. So this will also be a subcontractor that is not listed, but that is okay. And then under invoice 1, we will have $5,000 for them. So you will see over here to the right that this total carries over. And you'll also see that because they are an SBE, that is 1% of the total contract amount that carries up to our total contribution to our SBE goal. So now we're going to move on to our third and final box, which is payment to a material supplier. I'm going to turn it over to Jason. He's going to talk a little bit about the different material supplier types, how they get credit, and I'm going to fill in some of these boxes.
And thanks, Stacy. So in 2024, Federal Highway issued a final rule that changes some credit rates for suppliers and haulers. The one thing to note for the suppliers and haulers, so for example, if you got materials and hauling, all of that is going to be counted at one rate, which is 60% credit for a regular dealer. So starting off, we're going to go with manufacturers. Obviously, a manufacturer is a firm that owns or operates a factory or established procedure, or produces on the premises the materials, supplies, articles, equipment, and stuff like that. So they're going to get 100% credit as long as they are a manufacturer. Our next one is our regular dealer. They get 60% credit as long as they are selling it from their store, warehouse, or other establishment, which the materials and supplies or articles in general character are kept in significant quantities and sold regularly and leased to the public. And so the last one that we're going to talk about on this form is going to be the distributor, which is a new one. Distributor is somebody that takes ownership of the property and ensures the delivery, but they are not touching the product. Essentially, they are ordering it, having it arranged for it to be shipped to this other location, but the person that is arranging for it is taking responsible for it. So if there's any loss or damage, it's covered by the seller, which is a SBE or a DBE, and they get 40% credit for that.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
So we are just going to go ahead and go through one more quick example of an invoice. We're going to go through invoice 2 and go through some of those newer options for our SBE subcontractors. So for the second invoice, we're going to say that the prime was paid $50,000, and of that, they kept $30,000. So for this invoice, our first company that is a non-DBE and also not an SBE subcontractor, they didn't do any work, so they didn't get any money this invoice. Our regular DBE or SBE subcontractor that also includes our trucking DBE and SBEs, they also did not do any work this invoice, so they are also getting 0. Now, Jason's company has provided a multitude of different services for the prime contractor for this job. So as a regular dealer, they didn't do any work this invoice. But as a manufacturer, they received $10,000 from the prime contractor. And then they also acted as a distributor. So we have another $10,000 for them. Now, in some cases, most cases, I would say, you probably won't see the same company acting as a regular dealer, a distributor, and a manufacturer on the same project. You'll probably have a multitude or variety of different subcontractors performing those different services for the prime contractor. This is just an explanation to show you how those different types of suppliers work. So we do go over to this total box over here. We can see that it's totaled all of our SBE subcontractors that are material suppliers. And then we can go over to this box and see how much of that is really contributing to our goal. So as Jason said, our manufacturers contribute 100% of the item to the goal. So because $10,000 is 2% of our total contract, they get 2%. And the distributors, instead of getting a full 100%, they get 40% of the total item cost. So that is being calculated in this box at 0.8%. You should also note down here that in total, we have seen $125,000 of this $500,000 contract being paid out to the prime and subcontractors. So if we go back up to the top, we will see that our total percent of our goal met to date is 4.4%, which is almost to our 5% goal. So we're well on our way. And then another quick thing to note is on the prompt payment form, we want to make sure that we are signing in this box before we complete the form. So we'll just click on the box. It will ask us to sign in here. We'll press sign, and then we will be able to complete and save the form. So that is a very quick overview of the changes that we've made to our GoFormz. So I'm now going to open up the floor to any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Stacy and Jason. We have some questions already waiting in the queue. One that I've seen a couple times that I think maybe might help set the stage. Can you just explain what an SBE is?
It's a small business that is capped at a certain dollar value that is set by the Small Business Administration, I believe is the correct term.
Gotcha. And an SBE is a small business enterprise.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Does the elimination of the DBE program mean that local governments do not need to get Appendix Rs from DBEs now?
The Appendix R is being in the payment affidavit form.
Yes, I would say that locals do not need to get any additional information from the DBEs to finalize a project at this current state.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Someone asked, this is the first time I'm hearing about an SBE. What are the requirements of an SBE project? Are they the same as a DBE project minus the DBE affidavits?
They are the same requirements as a DBE project. We will also be requiring affidavits for the SBEs at the end of the projects. So it is very similar to the DBE program. It's just a different bit of nomenclature with the small business enterprise instead of disadvantaged business enterprise, and a little bit different for how we classify those different kind of businesses.
Excellent, thank you. Another question for the prompt payment form, can it be adjusted so that only subcontractors with approved C92s for this project show up in the lower portion of the form?
That's a very good question. I really like that idea. I think it's a great idea. I don't know how feasible it would be since most of our LPA jobs are not put into our Ashtaware program system, and that is where most of that data is being pulled from. So because we're receiving a pretty static C92 form from GoFormz, it's not, that information isn't really going into any system that we can pull that data back into the prompt payment form. But that's something we can definitely look into for the future.
Great, thank you. Is there literature on the federal government's DBE findings, or is that still ongoing?
The Code of Federal Regulations has been updated to the most current regulations, if that is what you're asking. So that information is current procedures.
Okay, very good. The next question, documentation that DBE/SBE goals were met. Does this form suffice for that, considering it keeps track of the goal to date at the top?
No. If the project goal is not met, goal attainment will issue a notice to the prime contractor requesting good faith efforts.
Gotcha, thank you. Where will this webinar be saved for contractors who do know how to complete these forms? All of our webinars are uploaded to our YouTube channel. And then, like I said, a link to that will be sent out to all registered attendees after the webinar. Next question. Can you demonstrate how to complete an affirmation of payment and share that with subcontractors?
At this time, we are internally discussing our subcontractor affirmation of payment form and how it collects data. So we are having a lot of internal discussions about that. We will get some more information out there hopefully soon regarding any updates we have about that. But at this time, we don't want to share any further information about that.
Great. Next question. Did the SBE program evolve from the federal DBE investigation?
So leadership with ODOT directed the small business enterprise or the small workforce development to create another program to help the small businesses, and we took the idea from the DBE program to build the small business, so it very mirrors the same regulations except for the recent items that were deemed unconstitutional. That was never put into the program. We're only looking at business sizes and not race and gender. And the DBE program has always had a component for small business.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. When invited to the GoFormz project site, will these LPA forms be present? Oftentimes, consultants are invited and only the ODOT project forms are present. For LPA CUF forms, you can only enter a project ID number, not project number.
I think maybe a little bit of what that question is about is when consultants are invited to our SharePoint site. So in the SharePoint site, that is a little bit different from our GoFormz site. I will pop up here on the screen an email for everybody. If you don't have a GoFormz account, this is the email that you should be sending a request to get an account to specifically look at LPA forms. If you have a GoFormz account, you cannot access the LPA production folder to view those forms. Please also reach out to this help desk. We will be able to troubleshoot your issue and make sure you have access to the correct forms. Sometimes when setting up GoFormz accounts, if you do work on ODOT projects and local projects, you only have access to the ODOT forms. So you will also need to be given access within your account to view those LPA forms. As of right now, all of the LPA forms that were discussed today should be live. So you should be able to see them on GoFormz and be able to fill them out. If there are some issues, please reach out to GoFormz or reach out to myself, and we'll be able to solve your issue.
Okay, and that person clarified that they were referring to the SharePoint site for LPA projects.
Yeah, so the SharePoint site is where all of our GoFormz go when they're completed, and you will need access to both of these sites if you are completing GoFormz and then also looking to add information into the SharePoint. If you do not have access to the SharePoint, please reach out to either your LPA manager or your LPA construction monitor in your district.
Okay, awesome. Next question. Who is responsible for filling out the prompt payment form? Is that the contractor or the CPE?
The person or people responsible for filling out the prompt payment form is the prime contractor.
Great. How do subcontractors access the affirmation of payment form?
If subcontractors would like to fill out the affirmation form at this time, they will also have to request their own GoFormz account.
Okay. Do 2026 LET contracts have SBE goals at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And point of clarification, the DBE program, is it on hold or is it
Yes, it is.
canceled? Okay, it's
The
considered on
DBE
hold.
program is considered on hold for now. We are receiving applications from some businesses to be back into the DBE program, but we are still looking at those. And at this point, we do not have an anticipated date for the DBE program to return, although we do anticipate that it will eventually return.
Okay, good deal. All right. Next question, we have payments to contractors that are being held up due to needing the affirmation of payment. Are they not required now?
So I touched on this a little bit in a previous question, I think. And right now, our office is talking with a few other offices here in Columbus, and we are discussing the future of our subcontractor affirmations. So right now, if there is a payment being held due to missing subcontractor affirmations, please contact your district construction monitor or reach out to me, and we will get that solved so that we can make sure that payment processes are still continuing as they should be.
Very good. Thank you. Are prime contractors required to set up or register our subs in GoFormz?
No. The subs should be setting up their own GoFormz accounts.
Excellent. And I think that brings us up to current. We've answered all of the outstanding questions. Don't see any additional questions coming in at this time. So at this point, we'd like to thank Stacy and Jason once again for sharing these important updates with us. Just a couple of final reminders as we sign off to keep an eye on your inbox. We will be sending out the link to the session recording and the PDF presentation to all registered attendees very soon. If you were logged in and present for the full duration of the webinar, you'll receive a certificate of attendance within 5 business days. As we close out, a super short 4-question survey will pop up in your browser. If you have 60 seconds, please let us know your thoughts. It really helps us fine-tune these programs for you. Thank you all so much for being with us today. We hope you're walking away with some great insights for your work. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everybody for being on today. We really appreciate your time and attention to this.
Thanks, Stacy, for the invite, and everyone else for joining.